Firstly, firstly. Firstly, I would like to thank everyone who came to my party. Firstly, I would like to thank everyone who came to my party. Secondly, secondly. To start with, we haven't enough money, and secondly, we're too busy. To start with, we haven't enough money, and secondly, we're too busy. Previously, previously. The building had previously been used as a hotel. The building had previously been used as a hotel. Entirely, entirely. I don't think you are being entirely truthful. I don't think you are being entirely truthful. Quite, quite. I enjoyed her new book, though it's not quite as good as her last one. I enjoyed her new book, though it's not quite as good as her last one. Carefully, carefully. Check the peaches carefully before you buy them. Check the peaches carefully before you buy them. Everywhere, everywhere. Everywhere looks so grey and depressing in winter. Everywhere looks so grey and depressing in winter. Suddenly, suddenly. Suddenly he found himself awake and fully alert. Suddenly he found himself awake and fully alert. Badly, badly. The warehouse has been badly damaged by fire. The warehouse has been badly damaged by fire. Immediately, immediately. Mix in the remaining ingredients and serve immediately. Mix in the remaining ingredients and serve immediately. Easily, easily. The knife easily cut into the chocolate cake. The knife easily cut into the chocolate cake. Maybe, maybe. Maybe you were right after all. Maybe you were right after all. Usually, usually. They usually get together once a month. They usually get together once a month. Unusually, unusually. There was an unusually high number of entries in the competition. There was an unusually high number of entries in the competition. Definitely, definitely. This book will definitely appeal to teenagers and young adults. This book will definitely appeal to teenagers and young adults. Slowly, slowly. He made his way slowly through the forest. He made his way slowly through the forest. Extremely, extremely. She's extremely well qualified for the job. She's extremely well qualified for the job. Actually, actually. He looks young, but he's actually 50 years old. He looks young, but he's actually 50 years old. Eventually, eventually. I presume that an agreement will eventually be reached. I presume that an agreement will eventually be reached. Finally, finally. We finally managed to get there in time. We finally managed to get there in time. Almost, almost. Most spiders weave webs that are almost invisible. Most spiders weave webs that are almost invisible. Already, already. I've already looked there. It must be somewhere else. I've already looked there. It must be somewhere else. Kindly, kindly. Kindly step this way, ladies and gentlemen. Kindly step this way, ladies and gentlemen. Often, often. How often do you wash your hair? How often do you wash your hair? Sometimes, sometimes. The tennis court is sometimes used as a car park. The tennis court is sometimes used as a car park. Briefly, briefly. We stopped off briefly in London on our way to Paris. We stopped off briefly in London on our way to Paris. Quickly, quickly. He quickly scooped the money up from the desk. He quickly scooped the money up from the desk. Never, never. The singer had never performed in New York before. The singer had never performed in New York before. Frequently, frequently. They frequently hold conferences at that hotel. They frequently hold conferences at that hotel. However, however, he can answer the question however hard it is. He can answer the question however hard it is. Clearly, clearly. The audience was clearly enchanted by her performance. The audience was clearly enchanted by her performance. Quietly, quietly. He would sit quietly and watch what was happening. He would sit quietly and watch what was happening. Fortunately, fortunately. Fortunately, the train was on time. Fortunately, the train was on time. Unfortunately, unfortunately. I like cats, but unfortunately, I'm allergic to them. I like cats, but unfortunately, I'm allergic to them. Politely, politely. He responded politely to her questions. He responded politely to her questions. Exactly, Exactly. I've forgotten where they live exactly. I've forgotten where they live exactly. Closely. Closely. Council officers are liaising closely with local groups. Council officers are liaising closely with local groups. Deliberately. Deliberately. She has been deliberately left off the guest list. She has been deliberately left off the guest list. Safely. Safely. I was pleased to hear you arrived home safely. I was pleased to hear you arrived home safely. Instantly. Instantly. They fell for each other instantly. They fell for each other instantly. Successfully. Successfully. The project has now been successfully completed. The project has now been successfully completed. Fairly. Fairly. She seems fairly settled in her new job already. She seems fairly settled in her new job already. Unfairly. Unfairly. He claims to have been unfairly dismissed. He claims to have been unfairly dismissed. Truly. Truly. On her wedding day, the bride looked truly radiant. On her wedding day, the bride looked truly radiant. Thoroughly. Thoroughly. Wet your hair thoroughly before applying the shampoo. Wet your hair thoroughly before applying the shampoo. Naturally. Naturally. Naturally, I get upset when things go wrong. Naturally, I get upset when things go wrong. Unnaturally. Unnaturally. She spoke in an unnaturally high voice. She spoke in an unnaturally high voice. Urgently. Urgently. Call me urgently if you have anything to report. Call me urgently if you have anything to report. Ideally. Ideally. The company is ideally placed to win the contract. The company is ideally placed to win the contract. Presumably. Presumably. You'll be taking the car, presumably. You'll be taking the car, presumably. Seriously. Seriously. She was seriously contemplating working abroad. She was seriously contemplating working abroad. Apparently. Apparently. Apparently, the company is losing a lot of money. Apparently, the company is losing a lot of money. Surprisingly. Surprisingly. The weather was surprisingly warm and sunny. The weather was surprisingly warm and sunny. Indeed. Indeed. It is indeed a remarkable achievement. It is indeed a remarkable achievement. Soon, soon. I hope you will soon find your lost ring. I hope you will soon find your lost ring. Currently, currently. We are currently studying all the options available. We are currently studying all the options available. Rarely, rarely. Teenagers and their parents rarely agree. Teenagers and their parents rarely agree. Occasionally, occasionally. We occasionally meet for a drink after work. We occasionally meet for a drink after work. Literally, literally. Until my next payday, I was literally without any money. Until my next payday, I was literally without any money. Slightly, slightly. I was slightly tanned by the sun. I was slightly tanned by the sun. Generally, generally. We generally go to the coast for our holidays. We generally go to the coast for our holidays. Repeatedly, repeatedly. They repeatedly questioned his leadership abilities. They repeatedly questioned his leadership abilities. Totally, totally. She totally lost her composure and began shouting. She totally lost her composure and began shouting. Again, again. I'll never ever do that again. I'll never ever do that again. Accidentally, accidentally. My father accidentally locked me out of the house. My father accidentally locked me out of the house. Honestly, honestly. Please tell me what you honestly think. Please tell me what you honestly think. Eagerly, eagerly. They eagerly accepted my offer of hospitality. They eagerly accepted my offer of hospitality. Mostly, mostly. This area of the country is mostly desert. This area of the country is mostly desert. Happily, happily. The children were playing happily with their toys. The children were playing happily with their toys. Angrily, angrily. Local residents have reacted angrily to the news. Local residents have reacted angrily to the news. Enormously, enormously. My tastes have changed enormously over the years. My tastes have changed enormously over the years. Reasonably, reasonably. I can be reasonably precise about the time of the incident. I can be reasonably precise about the time of the incident. Oddly, oddly. She's been behaving oddly this week. She's been behaving oddly this week. Patiently, patiently. The driver sat patiently behind the wheel. The driver sat patiently behind the wheel. Strictly, strictly. Smoking in the cinema is strictly prohibited. Smoking in the cinema is strictly prohibited. Technically, technically. It is still technically possible for them to win. It is still technically possible for them to win. Loudly, loudly. Don't say that kind of thing so loudly. Don't say that kind of thing so loudly. Hardly, hardly. My fingers were so numb I could hardly write. My fingers were so numb I could hardly write. Painfully, painfully. I scraped my knee painfully on the concrete. I scraped my knee painfully on the concrete. Foolishly, foolishly. Foolishly, I didn't write the phone number down. Foolishly, I didn't write the phone number down. Simply, simply. He made me an offer I simply couldn't refuse. He made me an offer I simply couldn't refuse. Significantly, significantly. Oil prices fluctuated significantly during October. Oil prices fluctuated significantly during October. Vastly, vastly. The quality of the training has vastly improved. The quality of the training has vastly improved. Neatly, neatly. The squares of fabric were all sewn neatly together. The squares of fabric were all sewn neatly together. Wholly, wholly. In my opinion, the decision was wholly justified. In my opinion, the decision was wholly justified. Nicely, nicely. The car gets me there nicely in time for work. The car gets me there nicely in time for work. Truthfully, truthfully. I answered all their questions truthfully. I answered all their questions truthfully. Potentially, potentially. Clearly, this is a potentially dangerous situation. Clearly, this is a potentially dangerous situation. Lightly, lightly. I touched him lightly on the arm. I touched him lightly on the arm. Vaguely, vaguely. I vaguely remember hearing him come in. I vaguely remember hearing him come in. Terribly, terribly. I'm terribly sorry to have kept you waiting. I'm terribly sorry to have kept you waiting. Swiftly, swiftly. The police must be able to react swiftly in an emergency. The police must be able to react swiftly in an emergency. Gratefully, gratefully. I gratefully took the cup of coffee she offered me. I gratefully took the cup of coffee she offered me. Wisely, wisely. They've invested their money wisely. They've invested their money wisely. Innocently, innocently. He had innocently walked into a private dispute. He had innocently walked into a private dispute. Abnormally, abnormally. The kitchen is almost abnormally clean and tidy. The kitchen is almost abnormally clean and tidy. Boldly, boldly. He stepped boldly forward to speak. He stepped boldly forward to speak. Evenly, evenly. Apply the glue evenly over both surfaces. Apply the glue evenly over both surfaces. Recklessly, recklessly. The car swerved about recklessly in the bus lane. The car swerved about recklessly in the bus lane. Wildly, wildly. All the maps we had were wildly inaccurate. All the maps we had were wildly inaccurate.